نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد فهذه ليلة الجمعة ليلة عظيمة مباركة يسن فيها الإكثار من الصلاة على سيدي ومولاي رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه من كل عمل صالح. This night of Jumu'ah is a blessed night. There's a lot of barakah in this night. The sunnah is to increase your salah upon the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام from all good deeds. يروي الإمام أحمد في مسنده بسند حسن عن عبد الله بن عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنهما قال. Hadith the night collection Imam Ahmad with a reasonable chain of narration narrated to us by Abdullah ibn Umar. And it's a very simple hadith. It's not a complicated one. There's not a lot of information in it. The theme of the significance of Masajid is what I'm going to be covering over the next week or two or three maybe. And I like this hadith because it doesn't really have a lot of Ibn Umar just describes something that he saw that I think is significant and I think is worthy of sharing with you. And Abdullah ibn Umar was a very observant Sahabi, and he was someone who tried to follow the Prophet ﷺ in every detail of his life. He was not just, it wasn't just the big strokes, but also the detailed strokes. It's just how he was, radiallahu anhu. He would try and do everything. If he saw the Prophet ﷺ one day walking down a road in a certain way, he would walk down that road in that certain way. If he saw him stand under a tree for a second, he would stand under the tree for the second. If he saw him eating something, he would eat the thing he saw, radiallahu anhu. And he cared about the details in terms of following the Prophet ﷺ. But he did have the big strokes in place. I think a lot of the problems with, or the problem with following the details, it comes from when the person is trying to follow the Prophet ﷺ in the details and is missing the big strokes. Like they're missing the big picture. Like the person does not have the basic amount of compassion. Does not have the basic amount of honesty, of love, of closeness. Like the basics of the person is harmful towards they're rude towards other Muslims or to their spouses or to, when you're lacking the basic adab of the Prophet ﷺ's character, you actually repel people from following the details if you are following the details. And this is an important thing, that when you try to follow him ﷺ, you have to prioritize. You have to prioritize. You have to start with Tawheed. You have to start with the basic of La ilaha illallah, and then follow him alayhi salatu in the bigger picture aspects that he did. And then after you do that and you have that nailed down, then you can start looking for the details. I think it's beautiful. But when you don't have the bigger picture, it's a problem, because it makes people feel like it actually repels people from the deen. Like you're doing it without even knowing that you're doing that. So it's important to understand this piece. And I just want to point that out because I have no problem with people who want to follow him alayhi salatu wasalam in the details and the lihya and the way that it's beautiful, but make sure you have everything else down, like the basics. Make sure you have the basics down as well when you're following him alayhi salatu wasalam, or else it doesn't end up looking good. Anyways, Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu was the master of kind of following these details. And this hadith, he says the following. قال رضي الله عنه صلى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم حين أقبل من حجته قافلا في تلك البطحاء. That he saw the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام praying on his way back from his Hajj in the Batha. قال ثم دخل قال ابن عمر قال ثم دخل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم المدينة فأناخ على باب مسجده ثم دخله فركع فيه ركعتين ثم انصرف إلى بيته قال نافع فكذلك كان يصنع ابن عمر. So he said the Prophet ﷺ, when he came to Medina, the Prophet prayed on his way back from Hajj normally, but when he came to Medina, and he had already prayed, the beginning of the hadith said that he had already prayed whatever prayer it was time for. Like he entered Medina at Dhuhr time, he had prayed on his way back. He didn't need to, but he came to the masjid. He tied his camel to the outside of the masjid. He entered. He prayed 2 rak'ahs in the masjid, and then he went home. And Nafع Mawla ibn Umar, the great Sahabi, the great Tabi'i, who narrated to us most of what Abdullah ibn Umar taught and did in his life, said this is what Abdullah ibn Umar did every single time he came back to Medina. Every time he came back to Medina, he went to the masjid first and he prayed first. And the fuqaha, they take from this hadith, and this hadith is the way that it's mubawwab, the way that it's titled within the books of hadith. قال صنيع المرء إذا عاد إلى داره. What the person should do when they come back to their house or to their home, to their country, the first thing that they do is they go to the masjid and they pray 2 rak'ah. This is what the masjid was. The masjid was the place you checked in first. Like you came back, you've been traveling for a while. Before you go home, you go to the masjid. You pray 2 rak'ah there, you check in, make sure everything is, if there's anything you need to know, any new piece of information that you missed on your way back, and then go home. Because the masjid was the hub. That's where you went there first. You checked in with the imam or with the ma'mumeen, and you made sure you found things out. That this is not an invitation, by the way, to come and look for me. But the idea here is clear, that the masjid had that degree of importance in the lives of the Muslims. It was the center of their city. It was the center of society. It was the center of life. So if you're a Muslim, a practicing Muslim, if you were traveling, when you came back, you went to the masjid first. You prayed 2 rak'ah. You made sure everything was, you made sure there was nothing that you had missed that you should know about, that you should be doing, and then you went home. And then you went home, but the masjid came first. And I find that to be absolutely beautiful. Like the concept to be absolutely magnificent. You think about it. You have a place like that in your life. Like if you're traveling, coming back, there's a place you want to go first. Sometimes if you're lucky, it's your home, it's your house. But for men, sometimes it's not. For men, sometimes it's not. There's somewhere else you want to go first. Like there's a shared space where the shabab come together. You want to go there first, see people, and then go home. Like it's a part of the life cycle of a man, like of a male. It's always been, right? The masjid became that for men during the Prophet ﷺ's time. Like he transformed, he got rid of all these other side places where people would like to go check in first and then go home. He made the masjid that place. So wherever you were, even if you were traveling long distances, you're outside of the city, you came there first and then went home. Like many people will pray Isha. Before they go home, they have a place they check in first. Yeah? There's a room somewhere outside of that place. You go sit there for a few minutes, catch a chai, and then go home. Like it's just a way, men often need that. It's a very common practice. The Prophet ﷺ transformed this into the masjid. The masjid became the spot that everyone wanted to go first before they did anything. So you checked in, you found out what was going on, you were connected, not just to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the house of Allah, but to the people around you. You had your ashab, you had your teachers, you had the people that you went and you connected with. And then you found your way back to your home, because this was their home before their homes were their homes. I just think that's absolutely beautiful. I really do, right? And I'm not saying that that's going to be the case for you. I'm not even calling you to do it, because it may not be appropriate. But I'm just saying that's how they saw the masjid. If the Muslim communities around the world and work hard, they can make the masjid that again. Like we can turn the masjid back into that, where it's the center of the city, it's the center of the community, it's the hub that everyone wants to go to first and then go home. And that would be just amazing if the masjid became that center for all of us. And it was for the Prophet ﷺ, it was for Ibn Umar, and for centuries afterwards it continued to be. And one day, inshallah, we'll come back to being that again. يروي الإمام أحمد في مسنده بسند حسن عن عبد الله بن عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنهما أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم صلى حين أقبل قافلا من حجته في تلك البطحاء. قال: ثم دخل صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم المدينة فأناخ على باب مسجده ثم دخله فركع فيه ركعتين ثم انصرف إلى بيته. قال نافع: فكذلك كان يصنع ابن عمر. صدق رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا وحبيبنا محمد